I have an insane number of AI art and Midjourney styles for you to try today, submitted by viewers of this channel. A lot of these are absolutely amazing. I want to give a big thank you to everyone who submitted styles. But essentially, add these into your prompt as displayed on the screen to get images like what you see. Now, first comment is asking if I've seen P. Craig Russell's Elric renditions. Is it a reproducible style? Well, I haven't. I did a little bit of research and I tried to get as specific as possible with this style, and I think it got at least part of the way there, but I don't think it's absolutely nailed it. But either way, this particular phrase has a very interesting impact on all the characters that you apply it to. It tends to transform them and change the theme of them a little bit, perhaps to match the book itself, and has a little bit more of a rougher style. So I still think this is a great style to play with. I love what it's done with the car. It's done something a little bit different, and the way it sort of has added that torn sort of cape to Mario is a really nice touch. It's also done the same thing with Batman. So have a play with that if you want to see what results you get with this style. The next comment says, I've got a style for you, traditional Basohli painting style, which is an old Indian traditional painting style. However, I didn't quite get the result I wanted with just that phrase, so I added in a bit more information after doing a bit of research. And once again, I don't think it nailed it, but I think it got pretty close. A lot of the elements you see here, the way it transforms the characters like Batman here, it does a pretty good job. But even just the way it changes the attire and makes the old-fashioned gun here in the Terminator, I think is a nice touch. But overall, you can see the impact that it has. You can kind of pick up on the style pretty easily and see how it influences your images. So definitely have a play with that if you like what you see here. But the next one is actually a correction. I had a Dogu statue a few weeks ago, and I got statues of dogs. But by adding the quotation marks, it actually kind of corrects it. So I'm really glad this person commented and told me that, because now the statues don't look like dogs. Although the dog statue was cool, we get something a little bit more closer to what we're after. And again, a really transformative effect on the subject in the actual images. You can see it has like not only the statue type, but quite often changes a lot of the styles and the elements. And overall, Batman here kind of looks like a frog, and even Superman looking completely different again. I love the way it changes those elements. But even with Mario, the way it changed the proportions, I think was a really fun little touch. But this time, 2 suggestions, a plastic sprue model kit assembly and a character in a 3D cutaway treasure hunt. So I think this turned out pretty good in parts of a plastic sprue model kit assembly, and you can see the way it kind of adds in your subject with those parts around them. It will often do a top-down angle like what you see with the Hulk here, but sometimes it does more of a 3D angle like Pikachu before. But I found most of the images came out this way, top-down, and really created a lot of fun. So you can see it has a very consistent effect. But let's move on to as the main character in a 3D cutaway treasure hunt. I don't think it actually got the effect, but we got some cool 3D styling with this at least anyway, so I would have to play a little bit more, I think, to try and get this style out. But overall, I thought it was fun as it is. Even though it's not the exact style we're after, I kind of like the way a lot of it had that kind of 3D isometric sort of feel to it, and the way it kind of placed characters inside of things. So have a play with that one if you like what you see again. But this time, we have someone asking about creating jewelry designs. So you can see they've asked for a few different types. So I've come up with a prompt formula based on what they asked for. And you can see here, especially with the photo of a wedding ring, 5-carat size red gem prong setting. I changed that size down to 25, and we get the same style with the smaller stone. So that is something I think works quite well. This time we have changed to a bar setting and a diamond. Once again, that small size up to the 5-carat size, and it brings up a bigger diamond. So thinking about what you want to see, popping it into a prompt that describes it well has a good effect. As you can see here, this time we've got gold metal. So using this prompt formula, again, all this stuff's going to be in the description below, is a great way to design certain jewelry or objects that you want to see. But a massive thank you to this comment, which has over 70 styles, and there's never any pressure for me to try all of them, but people underestimate the fact that I really want to know how all of these turn out. You can see here when I'm scrolling down, the sheer amount of styles and some of the way he changes by removing the comma. You can see there's a lot here to play with. So let's move on and see what we've got. Now this is CnC Project, which tends to just make everything into wood, which is a really nice touch. I love the way it has a very organic grain added to the wood, a really nice 3D effect. And Midjourney, again, the way it's able to take something like a character and convert it into something like a wood statue or a wood carving, I just find is always super impressive. Down to the texture, the lighting, little shadows to show that the texture isn't just flat. The car, just has a wood color to it. I thought I'd keep that in to show you it's not exactly perfect all the time. But generally speaking, you get some pretty cool images like this one of Darth Vader. But shadow theater and then the scene. So I tried a few different scenes. What was recommended was action scene. You can see here we have Pikachu with the shadow theater action scene. So he's kind of fighting someone off. And of course we have the Hulk. Same thing again in an action scene, but I decided to go back, but I changed it to musical scene, and now we've got Pikachu singing, and as a bit of comparison again, we have Hulk. He is also singing to someone. I then moved on and tried a few more subjects, and when I changed this one to musical scene again with the Terminator, he's just sort of standing there holding a gun, very strong shadow. Musical scene Goku, he's like singing to himself, to the shadow of himself. So you can see how it adds in that shadow theater style. This is a drama scene with Pikachu, and it just creates a really nifty style and effect. Now, you don't always get such a big diversity within the scenes, but this one here with the drama scene is kind of like the death of Darth Vader. I think it looks pretty cool. I'd have a play with it. But Noodle Doodle, I didn't know what to expect here apart from noodles, and that's exactly what we got, which is people made out of noodles, like Pikachu made out of noodles, which I think is a nice touch. Also, the Hulk, he is positively made out of noodles, and a good 50% are made out of noodles, but there is that half that isn't. We've got the Terminator here. It's just like a cartoony version of him, and then you got Goku kind of just drawn on there, and even the futuristic car has just kind of like a drawn effect. So I found it was about 50-50 with this. But of course, I had to share this one with Darth Vader made out of noodles as well, as I thought that was a pretty funny way to set up his helmet. But we have totally tubular. So I get the impression this is probably someone from the late 80s and 90s, because I know I used to hear this with the Ninja Turtles movies and that, but adds a lot of skateboards, a lot of skate elements and street style elements. Has that, I guess, that artificial 80s style. The 80s is sort of more brown than it was pink and fluoro, but it's gone for the romanticized 80s color palette. I love what it's done with Goku here, the way he's jumping around. Everyone here is really cool. The car, a little bit different, a little bit more unique. But my favorite is Darth Vader, blowing some bubblegum, wearing sunglasses, which he does a lot with some of these styles. So it's going to be a bit of fun. Wordular-grammaticalism. So this adds a lot of text to your images. So sometimes you get a nice text effect like this with the art printed over the text. Sometimes you get art made out of text. So if you're looking for something to do with typography or text and you want to have a little bit of flexibility to see what it comes up with, it does this effect a lot, but also changes things up like this one with Goku. So it's not always the same, but there is some consistency in there if you at least re-roll a few times, but otherwise you can get a few gems that are different as well. Interrobang, which is actually like a question mark and an exclamation mark in one. But however, Midjourney just sees the question mark when it applies to these images. So you find every image in one way or another seems to revolve around or include some kind of question mark in the image. So I actually found it pretty funny. I actually didn't know what interrobang was. I had to look it up, but definitely a fun one to play with. The car doesn't seem to have it, although that's one of the few that doesn't. But I love the way Darth Vader looks kind of curious and thoughtful here with all these different question marks. But moving on, we have bread. It's the idea of removing the comma and turning characters into bread. So we have Pikachu bread. Looks like a loaf of bread with Pikachu's ears and face on it. And Hulk bread. That does not look like the type of bread you want to eat, but you kind of get the idea. You get this nice transformation. The fact that eyes are glowing and there's metal in the breads probably means you don't want to eat it. But this Goku bread, I think, looks pretty cool. And you can pop that bread on your futuristic car, which has bread on top of it and has kind of a loaf toastery sort of shape. And of course, Darth Vader bread. Very nice little bread art there for his helmet. But Ballroom Dancing with, this is where you pop two character names. So we've got the Incredible Hulk, Ballroom Dancing with Pikachu. And you can see how by switching between the two, the way it kind of dresses him can be a bit of fun. It changes up the costume a little bit. Sometimes it gets a bit confused between the two. But overall, this can just be a nice, fun little action prompt where you can pop two characters in, pop an activity in the middle. It doesn't have to be ballroom dancing, but you can see what you get. Phantasmagoria, which is basically for dreamlike images. So this looks more like a nightmare type image of the Hulk up close about to kill you, and the Terminator. It looks more like a movie poster, but it has a dreamlike quality to it. Also Goku kind of facing off against a demon in his dreams, and even the futuristic car, that haze, that old-fashioned dreamlike state. You can see how it adds just a little bit to the images to make them a little bit more unique. But now we have violent origami on fire. So this tends to make characters out of origami, adds some flames, and does a pretty good job of kind of matching the style while keeping that origami/paper look, although this, like, some of it looks a little bit too crazy to be origami, but overall the effect is there. It's pretty solid and does a pretty good job of creating some interesting images, and I love this one of Darth Vader. He always comes through. But moving on, we have Chilling with the Mellow Yellow. This had such a great effect, more than I expected. Everyone's chilling out, lots of yellow, and very stylized, almost design type images. And I love Goku here, the kid, got the sunnies and the soft drink can. Very cool, and even the yellow car, everything has a chill vibe to it, especially Darth Vader. He's done a pressing for the day, he's popping on his yellow sunglasses, going to the beach. But we have Magic Girl. So this tends to convert your characters into sort of magical girls or add them into the scene like it does a Pikachu here. But you can see here with the Hulk, I guess we've got the She-Hulk we should have got, and also maybe the Terminator. Terminator's turned into a girl, but still looks pretty deadly. And I love the way with Goku add the little kind of ponytail to the hair, but also the girl on the futuristic car. And then, of course, we have Darth Vader. Stunning as always. This is definitely a what-if video waiting to happen. But moving on, we have taken control of the funky Mothership, which does a great job sometimes. It turns people's heads into these weird sci-fi looking steampunk motherships, or has people taking control. Terminator looks more like an agent from Men in Black here. Goku taking control of a little ship, and the futuristic car, something of a spaceship itself. And again, we get to turn someone into a spaceship. So this was just a fun one to play with and create some pretty cool images. But under the influence of the yellow submarine. I don't know if Midjourney fully understands the assignment, but it's popped the Hulk under a yellow submarine and has converted the Terminator into a yellow hippie, something that could be, I guess, drawing from the Beatles in order to sort of get this style. But overall, another really cool kind of yellow visual style to add to your images, and a lot of fun. Now we have 3-panel story. So this was actually recommended being used with 16:9 or 9:16 aspect ratio. But as you can see with square, it works well. But the ultimate idea, I've decided to do a 16:9, is to show 3 panels. And about 75% of the images come out this way with the 3 panels. And it looks like something you could probably even add a little bit of dialogue to. Although sometimes you get stuff like this. We've got 4 panels, but kind of 3 panels to the side of the Terminator. But it has a nice comic book effect where it sort of draws the 3-panel style from. This one of Goku, I thought, was a really nice one. Almost tells a story, whereas this one's like him coming down from being a Super Saiyan. But you can see how, if you're looking for this style of layout, it's actually quite easy for you to just simply punch that in and get that 3-panel style. I'd even recommend with a few different numbers. Recommend experimenting with a few different numbers to see what you get, because this could be a very flexible style to work with. But mythical, legendary action scene. This has such a cinematic impact. The mythical nature and the energy and just the lighting, the way each scene is done, looks like a massive action scene, like something you'd see in a movie or a really high-end animation. I really love the way sometimes it places an opposing force in the image, but the explosion behind the car here was nice. Darth Vader looks like he's about to head into battle. This is a really, really cool style to work with. But suffering from existential overload really adds a sense of art to the style of the emotion. And even just the stoic look on the Terminator's face here, but often it does add something above the head, like it has with Goku here, or someone like Darth Vader with his hands on his face. Can be pretty handy to, pretty useful when you're looking for that kind of effect. But doing taxes. Now, the idea was to try a whole bunch of different things, like doing taxes or other mundane tasks. So I tried a bunch of different ones. We've got Pikachu doing taxes, a Hulk doing taxes. Everyone's doing the really boring everyday stuff that we quite often don't see our characters get to do. And I thought it was a fun one to experiment with to see how it handles it. It handles it pretty well. It's obviously not a difficult thing to do. The car's not really doing taxes. It's kind of like more symbolic, but we can see Darth Vader here with his calculator and coins out. But also we have mowing the lawn. I'm sure everyone wants to see their favorite character mowing the lawn, but it's more the outfit that gets me here with Pikachu, the hat, and the fact that Hulk has a lawn on him, and they all seem to have ride-on lawnmowers. I had to dig to get this one of a push lawnmower. Terminator's legs are bare. Goku's having some trouble with his lawnmower and looks like he's struggling a bit, whereas the car's just kind of parked in the lawn. But look at Darth Vader. He looks pretty peaceful. Probably has got a lot of money being a very high-ranking Empire employee. But making dinner. So someone in the kitchen making dinner, like Pikachu here, stirring the pot, cooking up, and even Hulk. I love the way he looks very calm and focused here while making his dinner, and the same with the Terminator. This turned out, looks a lot like if Arnie was cooking dinner, to be honest. And Pikachu, should I say, Goku looks nothing like Pikachu. Does a nice job. The car's got like dinner inside of it, which I thought was a nice touch. But also Darth Vader cooking something for Padme before he quickly realizes that she's no longer around. But I added doing mundane tasks in there because he mentioned it in the comments. And I love the way it has a few different tasks here with Pikachu. The Hulk just kind of looks like a little bit confused and overrun. And of course, the Terminator, he's just sitting around watching the game in the late 70s by the looks of it. I'm not sure what's going on with Goku here. It looks like someone's died next to him. Hardly mundane, probably more terrifying. The car just kind of looks like a car. Darth Vader, again, just sitting down, relaxing. Cans of soft drink, much like the Terminator, but experiencing intense anxiety. So once again, using a bit of emotion in your prompts sometimes does a great job with the facial expressions, sometimes it doesn't. I love what it's done in this lot. Every single image had at least some form of emotional expression, except for the car because there's no face, but the color palette, the mood kind of matches. Darth Vader has massive eyes to show his anxiety, so I thought that was a pretty cool addition. But if you love the visuals of Wonderland, so from Alice in Wonderland, you can see here the Hulk. You can see how it adds all the elements of the characters into the image. The bunny, the background. This is a really, really fun visual style to play with because it just adds so much sort of wonder and energy and of massive mushrooms to the images. And again, I love the flowers and Darth Vader's head here. Very cool. But moving on, we also have confronts an unpleasant reality. Getting through these a bit quicker because there's so many of them. But once again, that emotion, that mood that gets added with the unpleasant reality, often they're facing themselves or someone else in the scene. And I love the way it's kind of interpreted that and added those bits and pieces into the scene. And of course, with Darth Vader looking at himself. Very interesting sort of take by Midjourney with this style. But performing tricks at the skate park. Everyone's got their skateboard out and is performing some really impressive tricks. A lot of mid-air shots, which is cool. Usually the background, the setting, usually pretty consistent. Everyone's basically mid-air. Not everyone, but the vast majority, even the car, is mid-air with a skateboard sitting off to the side. And Darth Vader, he's the only one who's only slightly mid-air in this particular lineup. But moving on, we have 90s sitcom, which sometimes has a photographic effect, but often plays more on the characters and the setting with the subject. In this particular instance, we've got that nice photo effect with the Hulk. But overall, I love the way it adds in some very down-to-earth, almost more 80s than 90s elements, but it does a pretty good job of making the characters look like they're in a sitcom. I'm not sure what to do with the car here, but I thought I'd show it to show that it doesn't always work that well. Darth Vader just looks like he's sitting on the couch, like he's disappointed in someone, but raging intensity of 1,000 exploding suns. I really love the intensity of these images. Everyone's angry, fired up, the heat. You can see the heat, the way it brings in that yellow and orange warmth, and sometimes the explosion and the fire elements makes some really cool images. This one looks like Goku is bringing his full power to the battle, the car kind of going off, and then of course Darth Vader, very explosive and intense image, so definitely one worth playing with. But lost in space and time, a little more peaceful. We get a lot of people in space in their spacesuits, just kind of lost. There's a bit of an interstellar vibe I get with some of these images, not so much this one here, but you can see how there's just this very kind of outer space vibe. Everyone's exploring, but the added sort of weird characters just add something to the elements. Even this old car looks like it's been discovered on a planet hundreds of years later. I don't know why there's a cloud coming out of Darth Vader's head, but I thought it was a pretty cool touch anyway. But propaganda poster. Now, this is a lot of fun. I had to remove one, which had a swastika on it. But otherwise, Pikachu, everyone has that sort of propaganda style. Looks very Eastern style propaganda poster. Not really a lot of American style stuff here, but the colors, lots of red, lots of that sort of cream colored paper, as you can see with Darth Vader. So a very consistent style with that one. Definitely, if you want that look, go for it. But at Ludicrous Speed, someone I think has been watching Spaceballs, and you can see where you have some crazy speed put into these images. Now, it shows the best ones. Some of them aren't as intense, but pretty much all of them had some form of kind of like motion blur or something added to the image. As you can see here, it's a really good way to, I guess, add some action into your images to make it look like something's really going on. This would be an interesting thing to mix with video. I love the fact so many people are on bikes here with this particular phrase. But made out of fireworks. Another cool phrase that basically takes your subject and makes it up of fireworks and kind of fiery little lights. As you can see here, Hulk actually has fireworks going off on him, but usually there's some form of firework making up at least an element of the character or the subject. So it can be a different sort of interpretation of art or art style. And if you like this kind of glowing effect, definitely have a play with this one because it does a really good job of interpreting it into your images. But California Dreaming. This one I thought was cool. Just adds a nice California vibe to everything. Kind of like just like that cool, relaxed, lots of palm trees. Usually a little bit of an old-fashioned style to it, but nice, relaxing colors. I love the kind of double exposure done with the Terminator here. But overall, everyone has sunglasses. That cool vibe. Lots of nice plants. Very relaxed. And of course, we have Darth Vader just sitting down after a long day's work of oppression. So I really think That's a cool phrase to work with. But escaping from Salvador Dali's subconscious. So probably the most famous surrealist artist in the world. Add this phrase in, you get some cool surreal style images. So I love the way it... I'm a bit disappointed I didn't see any melted clocks in here, but I did see a lot of that desert look, a lot of mixed up sort of styles. I love this one of Darth Vader. Very trippy. Highly recommend you play with this one. But in the style of Gorillaz. Gorillaz being the musical band, they have a nice animation style, and Midjourney does a great job of applying something at least very similar to that to the subjects. It styles them up a little bit, adds even some sunglasses, things like that. Even the way it drew the car it's not really in style, but it's just unique and different. But I love what it did with Darth Vader here. Very different, so definitely play with that one. But another cool style in the style of Tank Girl Comics has another very unique street style added to it. Again, we've got the sunnies, we've got the outfits, we got a nice cool look. The Terminator is a chick because it says, Tank Girl, so it does convert a lot of subjects to women. But overall, there's just a nice, consistent, cartoony vibe with these images, and once again, Darth Vader, very unique transformation added to him. But we have in the style of the New Yorker magazine, and most of the time, I got the New Yorker printed at the top, not always, but you can see how it kind of creates a magazine cover. The Hulk looks like he's fallen upon hard times. So the Terminator, just kind of, there's no New Yorker title in any of these, but it just does a great job of illustrating and going for that style of cover image that just sort of you would see on that kind of magazine. So definitely another one worth playing with if you like that effect. In the style of a black and white minimalist New Yorker sketch cartoon. So now we get this nice black and white, very simple comic style, and sometimes it gets a little bit complex, but most of the time it's pretty simple. Like this one on the Terminator is probably one of the more complex ones, but very stark black and white style for most of these. So this could be a great way to get that particular drawing style with that particular black and white minimalist line style. I love what it did with Darth Vader here, if that is something else you're also looking for. But in the style of Tim Burton, does draw heavily from The Nightmare Before Christmas and has a great visual style. It really transforms the characters. This looks more like the Grinch here with the Hulk, but just the proportions, the way it changes things, and quite often adds big eyes to the characters. It just makes it a very transformative and fun style to play with. Even the car has a little bit of a vibe to it. But of course, we get to Darth Vader. Very different. Love the skulls. A nice touch. But moving on, we've mixed in the style of Tim Burton with Salvador Dali to get a very mixed style. Although this one has a little bit of a Dali's mustache. A little bit more of a Tim Burton style added to it, but it just adds a little bit of the Salvador Dali surrealism to some of the images. So this one could be a lot of fun to play with. If you want to also add other artist names, you probably get some very, very unique images. And again, coming back to Darth Vader, we get a more surrealist style with him too. But moving on, we have in the style of Mad Magazine cartoon. So if you didn't grow up reading Mad Magazine, you really missed out, but it didn't really nail the style as much as I thought it did, but it did add comical, energetic element. This one of the Terminator turned out pretty good, although you can sort of see some of the differences. I guess if you have a certain idea in mind, sometimes it won't match up, but a lot of the comic panels, it has drawn on that style, so you can get some pretty unique images with this one as well. But also, we have in the style of Sergio Aragonés. So Midjourney tries to draw upon his cartoonist drawing style and influence the images, and I think it looks pretty good. Not as familiar with this style as I'd like to be, but from what I've seen, it seems to marry up at least a lot of the elements pretty closely. So this could be another great visual style to transform your images and get that more, I guess, old-fashioned cartoon style, if that's something you're after. But also, I love what it did with Darth Vader. But also moving on, we have Cubicle Worker. This is another one of those mundane styles, which can be a lot of fun. As you can see, it pops subjects into a cubicle, so they're working away. Another way that we kind of humanize some of these more fantastical characters using AI. Terminator's still got the guns, still going for it, and the car has a worker inside of it. This is the future that the big companies want. As you can see, this is like looking into the looking glass and seeing what's coming for us. But we have Osaurus. No space, no comma. We have Pikachusaurus. This helps to convert certain images or people into kind of like Transformers. So Hulkosaurus, also Terminatosaurus, the glowing eye. You can see it's a Terminator. But also Batmanosaurus. I thought this one was really, really cool. Have fun with that one as well. but overwhelmed by cuteness. Lots of kittens, lots of teddy bears. Everything has those cute proportions. The Terminator looks like a little kid. There's a cute little like animal next to him. It really does a good job. Even Goku's added a little kitten in there for some reason. So lots of little furry animals, lots of really cutish sort of proportions. And of course, finally, Darth Vader. He is a cat surrounded by, I don't know, little kittens or animals. I don't know, but that's a lot of fun. But trapped in the elevator of Lovecraftian horrors. I love what it adds into the ceiling of the Hulk here, like other Hulks. It has a great job of setting a certain mood. Quite often adds that kind of texture or like the faces into a wall or roof. So this, if you really love that really horror, almost sort of sci-fi-ish sort of style, but mostly just horror-based, have fun with that one. But as a 50s sci-fi robot, another fun one to get that really cool old-fashioned boxy style of robot. I really love adding this style to kind of the more serious sort of images like Hulk or the Terminator. Hasn't really done much, but I love the way it popped Goku into that type of sort of outfit. And even the the futuristic car looks old-fashioned, and Darth Vader looks like that old style of robot. Very cool. But also hyperactive scene. Lots of energy, lots of explosiveness. It just tends to find elements to add that sort of free explosive energy into the scenes, and it does it pretty well, except for the Terminator here. So it generally is pretty consistent with most of the images, but as with any style, it's not always going to work. But you can definitely re-roll and try a few times, and at some point you will get something that what you're looking for. But this is a great way to add a bit of energy to your images. But you can also use emotional scene and basically any other description of a scene to add in things like emotions or vibes. So this emotional scene adds in a bit of a negative emotion. It works on not only the tone, but the facial expressions. And you can see how everyone kind of has that little bit of at least an emotional kind of reflection in their images. Or in this case, once again, the tone. Even Darth Vader, that facial expression tells a big story. But anyway, mundane scene is another way to get, kind of like we were doing the mundane tasks before. You can add in just mundane looking scenes of people just doing mundane things. So that's another way you can use scene in your prompts to kind of describe the mood of what you're aiming for. Nothing's really happening, but that's the type of image you're after. We move on, we have shock and awe scene. So this is where you're bringing the energy back up a little bit from mundane. Everyone looks like they're shocked, angry, very emotional. We get a lot of panels with this one for some reason, but you get some pretty interesting images. The way it interprets the shock and the awe, it just kind of adds a little bit more in there than what you would get with some of the other scenes. But of course, we can bring it back down with a relaxing scene. Everyone's basically relaxing in nature. So on the beach, Hulk, he's got himself a beer, and Terminator wants to feel the air on his shins with this particular one. And there's I don't know if Goku's dead or alive here. I guess we're going to find out. But if we have a look at the car, someone's relaxing in the car, and Darth Vader very relaxed after his day on the Death Star. But a tranquil scene adds a little bit more of a sense of stillness, something very tranquil, very peaceful, lots of flat water and nature again. And I think it just creates some really beautiful scenery and pops things in there like killer cyborgs and, powerful martial artists. The moon is huge in this one. But overall, the mist, the vibe, the very still water you sort of get, Darth Vader's force fishing here, is pretty cool. But extreme action scene dials that energy back up. Lots of explosiveness, lots of movement, lots of energy. Hulk is about to punch you right in the face, so you know this is going to be a good style to work with. The Terminator, about to fire, and also we can see Goku here, the way the dust is flying up, he's obviously in action. The car flying down some kind of futuristic street, and Darth Vader, there's something going on here that's keeping him busy. So, Pondering the Imponderable, a little bit different again. This one, everyone's kind of just thinking. Lots of big eyes here on Pikachu. There's a lot of just sitting, thought, contemplative sort of images. So even the one with the car, we've got someone just sort of contemplating next to the car, and even Darth Vader, the nice little thought bubble. Pretty cool, bit of fun. But again, challenging Midjourney, we have stuck in a paradox. The way Pikachu's kind of lost in a maze here, but it tends to add in a few different elements like this boy facing Hulk, and the Terminator is just kind of sitting in a car. Sometimes the Terminator can be a little bit hard to get moving, but otherwise we do get some elements here that are very thought-provoking, very challenging sort of for the brain of the subject, such as Darth Vader here. So that could be another one to play with for a different effect. But Quixotic Adventure. If you're looking for something a little bit sort of ideal and fantastical, Quixotic Adventure does do a pretty good job of adding in very fairy tale elements, very sort of out there stuff. The Terminator looks completely different. Again, just sitting in a car. But otherwise, Goku, he's out on an adventure, got a big stick. It just has a nice adventurous feel to it, but sometimes add in some sort of otherworldly style of elements. So Quixotic is probably a good word to experiment with Midjourney. But whimsical silliness. So whimsical does do a lot to images. Silliness, I think, will do a little bit as well. So we just got kind of like a fun, very colourful, bright nature to all of these images. So using the words whimsical or silliness could probably get you somewhere in the ballpark here, but the two together I think work quite well. And it's just like a bit of a happy, positive sort of style and spin to add to your images. As always, Darth Vader looking completely different. I love the way that Midjourney transforms him. But 1950s cat fancy magazine cover. This is funny. So everyone kind of has a cat or looks like a cat. Has that 1950s illustration style. Hulk is having tea with his cat. The Terminator looks like the deadliest cat you've ever seen, whereas Goku is a cat. So it's just the way it handles the style, I think, is really, really impressive, especially when it comes to Darth Vader, who's like a cat with a Darth Vader nose. So I think that's a nice touch. But overall, slapstick comedy action scene. I didn't see as much slapstick here as what I thought, but it just sort of added a little bit of a comic-y sort of vibe, like people disagreeing. The Terminator here, I don't know what's the look on that face is for, but you can see there's a little bit of slapstick action, I guess, implied in these images. The car is pretty much just a car, but overall, it can be fun to see what you get with this one. So let me know how you go if you try this one out. But old manuscript decorative borders illumination. So this one, very old-fashioned style, and you'll see from the images, very consistent, very old-fashioned. I think that word manuscript, the borders, the skulls here in the Terminator with nothing in the frame. You can see how this could be a great way that if you're looking to create some classical style imagery, throwing this in there with almost anything will probably get you an image like what you see here. Even Darth Vader, there's a very little Darth Vader and more of the style in this image. But grooving to the funky vibes. So even though this guy has a guitar here, the images are people sort of dancing. Pikachu's got his headphones, he's dancing. The Hulk, he's got headphones. Everyone's just having a good time, rocking out, headphones on or headphones around their neck. This is just kind of like a really cool, almost music video style vibe to these images. However, futuristic car just kind of looks like a different type of car. But again, coming back to Darth Vader, got those sunglasses and headphones on. I hope you can actually hear through that helmet. But this time, removing the comma again, we've got the barista. So we got Pikachu, the barista. And we transform our characters into baristas by adding this phrase. And you see the Hulk, everyone looks like a professional coffee barista working in a cafe. So I think you could actually use this not so much just for the barista, but to describe anyone as any kind of sort of role, just simply describing the name and the, cabinet maker or whatever it is you want to do. So definitely play with that one. But Raging Molten Steel, this had a really cool visual element, glowing, almost fiery, because that molten steel has that fiery look to it. A lot of the images are super soaked in warm, fiery colors. So I really appreciated just how much it impacted all these images. So definitely one worth playing with. In the car, it's kind of next to the molten metal, which I thought was a nice touch. But also Darth Vader, he's working out on some molten metal. So very cool, but keeping with the metal theme, we have aggressive aluminum. So this tends to just create these really highly reflective aluminum style characters. Even the Hulk, usually you get a bit of green in there, but not this time. Just straight up aluminum. And even the Terminator, we've got rid of the red in the eyes. So you can see how this has a very powerful impact, using that material to influence how the subject turns out in the image, even with the car and this really bright, shiny Darth Vader helmet. But Triumphant Titanium adds in a similar metallic effect, but everyone's happy and celebrating, hands up in the air because they've been triumphant. Well, except for the Hulk, who's kind of just standing there. But overall, there is a triumphant vibe. Like even the Terminator's got his hand up a little bit here. Goku, he's kind of firing up the car. That triumphant vibe is a bit more of an energy. You can see it very well with Darth Vader here, fist pumped in the air. He's pretty happy. But also, we have Berserker Bronze. This is really cool. It creates a bronze statue, but also adds that Berserker kind of like character element to the actual subject itself. that old-fashioned warrior style. Really, really cool. I would love to see one of these bronze statues, especially this one, sitting on my office desk. It's really, really cool. So this can be a great way to create some bronze-looking sort of style. Love the way they've samurai'd up Darth Vader here. Definitely a fun one. Quixotic Zink. So once again, we have that word quixotic, kind of like that impractical, idealized sort of like style. So you can see how we've changed things up. Again, people looking a little bit different. I think that word quixotic could definitely be played with a lot more. I'm not sure exactly how the zinc comes in here, but it definitely did have an impact on the images and transformed some of the elements of the characters. And coming down again to Darth Vader, looking quite different. So definitely have a go and try some of those styles out. I will list them all in the description, in the timestamps. So I want to thank everyone who submitted these styles, especially that massive list. Really, really cool stuff. If you enjoyed that, please consider giving the video a like. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.